Welcome to O-Ree County Community Calendar. I'm your host and fellow O-Ree County and Herb Mossman. Right now, our tape day today is September 10th. We are on 10th Avenue North and Broadway. We're right along Myrtle Market right here. The sound you hear is the number 89, the shuttle that heads up 79th Avenue North along Ocean Boulevard. We're at the transfer center. What we're doing here today is we're waiting for a bus that's going to take us to Market Commons. And this is the bus that goes to Market Commons and then Freestyle Music Park and so on and so forth. What we're going to be doing today is heading over to Fox 43, the broadcast center. We're going to be with Greg Rowles. That's our guest today on the calendar. With that said, we're going to wait for a moment for the bus. We're going to turn over our transfer, and then we're going to head out to Market Commons, then take about a 37th of a mile walk over to Fox Broadcast Center, and we're going to sit and chat with Greg Rowles for a while. With that said, let's get on the bus. Here we go. Cut tape. We are back on. We have arrived at Fox 43. Actually, it's a little bit later than I'm with Greg Rowles now. We were supposed to meet about 11 this morning, but Greg is running late. He is a far busier guy. As a matter of fact, he's the busiest guy I know in this area right now. Greg, what kind of a day? First of all, hi, good to meet you. What sort of a day are you having today, and how's it going?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. You know, this is so cool that you and I are going to get to just sit and visit. You know, and somebody told me one time, an associate pastor up in North Myrtle Beach, and he said when he looks for people to get stuff done, if has a task he wants to get done, he'll give it to the busiest person that he knows. And why is that? Because he knows that person's going to get it done. They're the sayers and the doers. My grandfather used to say that. Said, don't tell people you're going to do it. Just do it. They'll watch you. You don't have to tell people what you're doing. Just go do your thing. So today, you know, being a dad of 3, I'm up by default. We don't get to sleep in. Maybe on a Saturday morning, you get to sleep in a little bit, but we get up. The alarm goes up at 5:45. I'm not up at 5:45. Brandy usually nudges me about 6:15, and we get up, get the kids together. We do that as a family, and I'm honored to do that as a dad. A lot of dads don't get to do that. So we get the kids ready for school, and they go over to the Risen Christ Lutheran School up there in North Myrtle Beach. We take them to school, come back home. By that time, we've had a couple cups of coffee, and Brandy's getting ready for her day, and I'm getting ready for mine. And today consisted of me going out and making a sales call for Fox. And then I come down here and do a show for Fox, not the news. And from here, now listen, this time of year is really busy. This is when we earn our money at the Alabama Theater, because from here I go to Christmas rehearsals. It's tough to talk about Christmas in, I guess, September for some folks, but I've been doing it since June, so it's okay. I'm well into it by now. We're actually in full-time rehearsals for Christmas, so we rehearse Christmas for about 3.5 hours, and then from there I get ready to do the show, which starts at 7:30. And I go home, and I usually watch the news for about a half hour. I love the news. That's when you know you're getting older. You watch the news, and not only do you watch it, they rerun it, and you watch it again. That's when I figure out, and I can't wait for the news to come on. So I watch the news, and then I love getting on the internet, and I'll click on YouTube, or I'll write a chart for this week's service for the church service, and I'm usually in bed by 1:30. And then get up and do it again, and I'm having a ball.
Well, you're a pretty happy guy, but I have to tell you, I called you one morning, and I didn't call it from my cell phone, but I called you about 10 a.m. It was Monday morning, and it kind of, you know, what was happening, and you kind of, I guess I woke you because you were saying, don't call me, and you hung up, and then I called you about an hour and a half later on my cell phone, so you wouldn't recognize the number. So you were, I caught you at a bad time, so I did. I should have let you sleep in a little bit later.
No, you know what? I actually had a full day off. So Brandy and I actually had a chance to sleep in. It was great. It was one of those days where you took the kids to school, went back home, and then got to sleep in. I had a full day off. So that's what we do. You know, our family days, our days off, those are very sacred to me. Those are the days I want to throw the phone in the waterway. You know, give it the old Viking funeral, just into the water, and then we do schmaltzy, fun family stuff. You know, this past week we went to the movies. We just spent the day together, had dinner together. You have to make those times for your wife and for your family, just as if you're going to make a date. Otherwise, you fill those times with something else too, and then those moments are gone that you should have been spending with your family.
Is it hard for you, or do you kind of enjoy it because you're highly recognizable? You're a very recognizable guy. What is it like? You're sort of in a smaller area here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of people watch you, not the news, and your different the promotional things you do, and of course Alabama Theater, and you're just everywhere. You're a very busy guy. What's it like being out? What's the response like? I mean, everybody knows you.
Well, it comes with the territory. You know, when you're on stage and you're being seen by that many people a night, you do get to know people. And of course, the television thing, our viewership has tripled in just over a year. We went 5 days a week. And is that cool? You know, Herb, I tell you what I look at it. This just happens to be what God has given me a gift to do. Is it neat to be recognized? You know, I tell you what's more important for any of us to know is people that recognize you, but then do they have something good to say about you? I recognize a lot of people, and sometimes you don't immediately think of good, clean thoughts, you know. Excuse me. I would much rather somebody come to that theater and leave saying, you know what, Greg was, you know, he's not the greatest singer I've ever heard in my life, but you know what? Boy, he seems to be a nice guy. I felt really comfortable when I went to see his show. When somebody watches the television show, I hope that they see me picking at myself first, making fun of myself, jabbing myself, and then having fun with everybody else. You know, we pick on a lot of people. We don't do it in a malicious way. We try to have as much fun as we can. That's why the show's called Not the News. You're not going to see stuff on our show that you see on, you know, the 11 o'clock news or the 6 o'clock news. We get to cut up a little bit. Now, are there times that I get to voice my opinion and they let me do that about certain things? Yeah. Recently, I walked into a store and a Michael Vick jersey was hanging in a sports store. And I had a problem with that. So I told the manager, I said, you know, you need to burn that jersey. I just had a problem with that. So I came on the show here this past week and actually did a rant. You know, I kind of got off on my soapbox. And is that the right thing to do? Well, it just happened to be my opinion. You know, in that situation, and kind of going off on a tangent, you know, I believe in second chances. Golly day, God gives me second chances every single day. But this guy didn't have too much remorse for what he did, and I don't think we should be putting money in his pockets because of what he did. He just kind of became famous for that. And now he's capitalizing on it, and I just have a problem with that. But so, to get back to your question, is it fun to be recognized? Yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword because, you know, the flip side of that is that, you know, not everybody's going to have something nice to say. You cannot be liked by everybody. It's what I just told you, man. I would much rather say, well, he's an okay guy, but he was a goof, you know. And that's okay. That's what I'm getting paid to do. So, some people don't want to, they would rather have something negative to say than something positive.
You're talking about Michael Vick, and I'm thinking about Dick's Sporting Goods. You know, they made the statement they're not going to sell Vick jerseys until they see if it'll sell. Oh. So they, you know, you're either going to be on the fence. I was over at Grand Strand Humane Society a couple of weeks ago, and the last animal I met was Asher, which was he was a pit bull, but he was used as a bait dog. So his teeth were pulled and his ears were plugged and he was all scarred his face. So he couldn't defend himself, but he was bait. And I just find that it's just such an ugly story and what's going on there. But going back to you, now you were talking about your child. You have a 3-year-old?
Yeah, actually, no, I've got 3 kids. I've got a 14-year-old. My daughter, Courtney's 14. My oldest son, Grayson, is 10. My youngest son, Ashton, is 9. And my wife is my hero, man. I'm telling you,
you were talking about getting up.
I've got the easy gig. She's got the tough gig.
So then you would get up at 2 in the morning for feedings, you know, to feed.
Well, let me tell you, I did as much as I could. You know, it got a lot easier after Courtney. I was a new dad, and I started late. I was 30, and we were living in Nashville at the time. It was, let me tell you, moms. Moms are the ones to be applauded. Us dads kind of get off a lot easier. But I do applaud the dads that get up in the middle of the night and give their wives a break with the feedings and things like that. And they are still out there. I know them. They're doing it.
I didn't have that opportunity because my daughter, I only have the one child, and my daughter, she would sleep all night as far as we know. But it turned out she was getting out of the crib and rooting around. So that's why she wasn't waking up for the feeding. She was busy feeding herself.
The cool thing is now, my oldest son, Grayson, we never have to even go in and wake him up. He's like my grandfather. My grandfather's not alive anymore, but Lester was his name, and he'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, but he was in bed at 8 o'clock at night. You know, kind of what they used to say, up to bed, up with the chickens and to bed with the chickens. Mm-hmm. My daughter, however, being the teenager that she is, she's a little bit tougher to ruffle in the morning. She's the teenager. She sleeps till noon if you let her. And my youngest son, he's kind of easygoing. He gets up whenever you call him. Hey, he's up. He's ready to go.
All right. Talk about Star Search and Ed McMahon. Let's do a little bit of Star Search.
I love it. You know what? One of the coolest moments in my life was winning Star Search, and I didn't really appreciate it then, Herb. I appreciate it a lot more now because I guess I'm getting older, and you know, you sit in retrospect about all those things you've done. You know, one of the coolest things about that show was that I made so many friends folks that I'm still friends with today, folks that entertained on that show. But Ed, you know, he was an icon in the entertainment business. I always thought every time I shook his hand, you know, I was one handshake away from anybody in show business, you know, because Ed knew them all. And of course, you know, not to mention Mr. Carson. I was on that show for 9 weeks, and when I met Ed the first time, one of the coolest things about his show that you don't see on these shows today is that when Ed came out to greet you, and when he came on camera, he always had something positive to say. He never had anything negative to say. He never put anybody down. He never belittled anybody. And those were good enough for ratings then. Seems like now on the air, you know, if you don't have something, you don't make somebody cry or get them ticked off on camera, then you can't have a rating. It was an incredible experience, and he treated every single entertainer back there, backstage, like one of his kids.
And how old were you when you were in the midst of this?
I was 20, I've just turned 44, I was 28, just almost 29. Yeah, later on, I was the late bloomer. You know, I grew up playing all those years in Virginia. And I tell everybody, I grew up playing with my mom, my dad, my brother, my cousin, my aunt. But we played the animal circuit. You know, I played the Elks Lodge, the Moose Lodge, Eagles Lodge. I did all that on Friday and Saturday nights, and I missed a lot of those things I did with school, but I don't regret them at all. I got to grow up with my mom and dad. So that Star Search thing was certainly opened up a lot of doors. And
you played the Vatican. Talk about the Vatican.
Yeah, Ed McMahon was responsible for that. Ambassador Nicholson, who ended up serving as on Bush's cabinet, was
the first or the second?
The second. Yeah, the second. He was the ambassador to the Holy See, the Vatican. And they were doing a great big event over there for an Independence Day celebration with the Pope and, of course, the high-ranking bishops and the cardinals. And they wanted to do some country music. They wanted a piece of Americana. So James Nicholson, Ambassador Nicholson, called Ed McMahon. They were close friends, and said, who could you recommend to come over and play some music for us? And Ed McMahon said, you need to call Greg. Have him come over and do it. So Ed's the one that got me the gig. He didn't get a commission on the gig, but he's the one that recommended me for the gig. And I did it for the first year and became friends with the ambassador and his wife and their family. And they had us back for two more years before they ended up moving back to the States.
At this point, we're sitting in a conference room at Fox 43, and your producer's here, and some folks are starting to file in over here. We've got an audience. It sounds like, talk about an audience, it sounds like you're about to get busy. You may have a production meeting coming up.
We're going to do a read-through, and you know, you had mentioned the Humane Society. Daz is our director for Not the News. He was affiliated with the Humane Society for a long time, and an advocate for animal rights and those type of things, what you and I were talking about earlier. And Daz has been in the television business for how long, Daz? A long time. about 8 or 9 years. You're talking about coming from a large market. He came from Phoenix. He was here before, went to Phoenix. Audrey Grant Coble, who's co-hosting today, Audrey was with WPDE for years, and she comes in and she doesn't even really have to say anything. She just sits there and she could look pretty the whole time. And
well, I'll tell you,
my coolest gig, don't I?
You do. My grandpuppy Taffy is a rescue from Altoona, Pennsylvania, a shelter there, and you can't do better than Taffy. I mean, she's just what a great companion, what a great buddy. We're going to take a break. I'm going to do an ID.
And let me introduce Kristen O'Neill, too. She is our producer for Not the News, too.
Not the News. And we're going to talk a moment about Bill Monroe when we come back.
Okay.
And you're listening to Horry County Community Calendar. I'm your host and fellow Horry County and Herb Malsman. We're going to take a break. We're going to step out of the room, step back. They're going to do their read-through. I guess that's what you're going to be doing for Not the News. And then we'll be back, and I think, Greg, you're going to give me a ride.
Yeah, grab a sweet tea. We'll be right back.
We're gonna go on the road after this. So let's take a break. You can also, by the way, if you miss any part of this, you can listen to us online, WRNN.net. Go to We Want Your Footage on the homepage, scroll down, hit We Want Your Footage, and then you can hear the program 24/7 there. Let's take that break. We're going to step out, and then we'll be back with Greg in a little while. Cut tape. We are back, and I'm just going to put my headset in over here. We're in the car. We're in Greg's car. The not the news. What's the name of the show?
It's Not the News. It's never the news with me, is it, Herb?
Not the News. And we've just kind of and I've got my seatbelt hooked into my headset over here. But the reason why I'm a little discombobulated, am I ever combobulated?
You've never been combobulated.
I've never been combobulated. We were talking about Dr. Robert Ballard, and Greg had the opportunity to interview Dr. Robert Ballard. When was this?
Yeah, just a few years ago. I was working for another network in town, a beach tourism network, and you know, I'm not an interviewer. I'm an entertainer. You know, so they give me this, I didn't even know who he was, Herb. I didn't know who Dr. Ballard was. Didn't know he discovered the Titanic. Not to mention the Titanic, but all these other things, all these other accolades that this man could certainly brag about. They gave me this resume. He's 4 pages long, and I was really intimidated after reading all that stuff about meeting this guy because, you know, I'm this country bumpkin. I'm a country singer that entertains and, you know, have a lot of fun, but I'm not a hard news guy. And he could have easily blown me off. He gave me the first interview. And I approached that interview from the standpoint as a kid would, you know, just curiosity. Hey, you know, what did it feel like the moment you discover the Titanic? And as my eyes got wider, his eyes got wider, and it was almost like he was reliving it as he was telling it. But I approached it from that standpoint, and had a lot of fun. You know, I've had the chance to meet so many people in the entertainment business. And if I had to, I'm not sure if I could pick out one person that I've had the chance to open up for, work with, interview. You know, it's moments like these, Herb, that you get to take with you forever. You know, I've got to find out a lot about you today. I told you, you know, somebody should be interviewing you, not interviewing me. You know, a day in the life with Greg Rowles is not that exciting. You know, this happens to be what I do. And when you sit back and think about all the things you've done in your life, that the dash, as they call it, the dash. What have you done with the dash? The things that are most important to me are the relationships I'm going to take with me into the heavenlies when I reach heaven, because I believe in that. But the car you drive, you know, the house you own, the clothes you wear, none of that stuff matters. Tell you what. The friends that you make here matter, because you're going to have to live with those folks for eternity. And I've heard it said many, many times, and my grandfather said it too. If you treat people the way you want to be treated, man, life will be a lot better. Bill Monroe, you were talking about, you wanted to ask me about Bill Monroe. You know, I never forget the first time I met Bill Monroe. You think about Bill Monroe, he's the father of bluegrass music. And I love bluegrass, and I was a big fan of Bill Monroe, and it ended up being on the same roster with him at Buddy Lee Attractions. My agent was Bill Monroe's agent. along with Willie Nelson and Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings and Mark Chestnut, and I thought, man, I have made it. These are the folks that these were my heroes as a kid. I was playing the Opry, and I was on Bill Monroe's segment of the Opry. Every half hour, the Opry's show is broken down in half-hour segments. And it was my second or third time of ever being on the Opry. And it never got easier. I was nervous wreck every time. And Bill Monroe said, he looked at me and he said, boy, he said, you know what? He said, you go out there, and he said, you're going to make mistakes. Don't ever think I don't make a mistake. I've been doing this for 50 years on the Opry stage, and I make mistakes all the time. And he said, you know what? If you go out there and just love those people, you just love them, and they'll love you back. And you know what? He was so right. I don't think there's a night that I go on stage and you just watch the show at Not the News. It ain't perfect. None of it's perfect. I blunder, I skip over words, I trip over myself. And the same thing with the theater. I think what it does is it breaks down, it lets the viewer know, it lets the audience member know that you're real. You know, you're the same as they are. And they appreciate that when you kind of break down that wall and show them exactly that you are not as polished. Trust me, I don't take this serious enough to not laugh at myself first, and I do it all the time.
We're with Greg Rowles here. That's who we're with. I don't know if I mentioned your name after coming back off that break we had, but we're with Greg Rowles. We're heading, I guess you're going to be dropping me off at Northwood Plaza. I'm going to get a cup of my freshly brewed hospitality over Ace Hardware, Northwood Plaza, and Bill Clark you had on the air. Bill Monroe, had an opportunity to be with him. Ricky Skaggs did a video some years ago. Yep. New York City subway.
Uncle Pen.
Yeah, his uncle comes to town. Well, I covered that for my radio program on WMCA, so Bill Monroe was on the program.
Very cool. Yeah, you know, and Bill Monroe wrote that song. And it was big back in 1948. And Ricky Skaggs, being the student of bluegrass that he still is today, was one of Bill Monroe's. He just loved idolized Bill Monroe.
You're gonna say protege?
Yeah, and he really, you know what? He really was a protege of Bill Monroe. And so when he cut that song, and that was back in '83, Ricky cut that on his second album, and let me tell you, it took off. It just goes to show you, a good song is a good song is a good song.
That was an exciting video. The shuttle.
Great pickers.
Actually, it was done on the shuttle. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. We all gathered down there. There was some break dancers there.
Yeah.
Three young men.
Those guys down there.
Yeah. So I covered that for the program. It was pretty exciting stuff. Ricky was on with me. I keep on looking for a hearing aid. Do you wear a hearing aid at all?
Do I wear a hearing aid? No. Should I? Am I not listening?
No, because I see you do the spot all the time with Kimberly, the audio.
With Kimberly King. Well, listen. As pretty as Kimberly and as nice as she is, I'd wear a hearing aid if I had to, just to be around Kimberly. She's one of my dearest friends, and you know, I tell you how I met Kimberly. I actually had a hearing loss in one of my ears after playing for so many years, and I started getting concerned about it. Sure enough, at a certain decibel, I had a little bit of a hearing loss. Nothing detrimental, nothing to worry about. But that's how I got to meet Kimberly and her husband, Dave King, and they've been dear friends of mine ever since. And when I started working for these television stations, they started advertising with me everywhere I went, and she, again, they're just wonderful people. And I tell you what, Kimberly, looking after my ears and my hearing, she's the one that made my molds for my monitors, my in-ear monitors at the Alabama Theater. I listened through molds that she made me. So yeah.
I kept on looking for the invisible hearing aid because you're wearing one during the spot, and I said, well, you know, it happens to me. I was in the rock business for a long time in management, and it happens to musicians, and you're in front, so you're getting the full brunt of that sound.
Oh yes.
So that did cause a problem for you, but you don't. It's not enough to having hearing aid.
No, not yet, and hopefully it won't go that way. I take care of my hearing. Take care of my hearing and my voice. I do my best to rest those when I can, and nurture those.
So was it such a strange question?
No, it wasn't. No, not a bad question at all. And we just gave Kimberly King at Advanced Audiology a plug, so I'm sure she'll appreciate that.
There you go. What's in the future, Greg? What's happening at B? I know you're getting ready for your Christmas show and you're working out, but look into the future. Where are you heading? What about the children? Are they following you? Are they musically inclined like you are?
Courtney, my oldest, she loves to sing, and she's actually taking vocal. She's got a vocal coach now. She's singing a bunch. My middle son, Grayson, he loves to chase bugs and critters and things like that. He really hasn't shown up, although he does love to sing in school, but nothing really to hard interest. And Ashton, my youngest son, he likes to beat on things, so I tell everybody he's going to be my future drummer. He just doesn't know it yet. Yeah, the kids, let me tell you, my life changed just like any other mom and dad. 14 years ago when Courtney was born, I thought it was all about me, all about me. Your life takes a 180 turn when you have kids. It's a great thing.
We've got about 3 minutes before we close, and right now we're heading, we're right around 12th Avenue North. Kings Highway, Business 17. You're going to be dropping me off on 76th Avenue. Originally, the plan was I was going to meet you at Fox 43. We were going to do a half an hour sitting there in a studio someplace and do our 20 minutes, 28 minutes and go. And then you were running late and whatever you were involved with, and you kept on apologizing as you were changing just now to drive me over here. You kept on apologizing for ruining the day, but you certainly didn't ruin the day, folks. You know, this went a lot better than sitting in a room someplace and doing 28 minutes.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, this is exactly what I look for the program, to take a different direction, and we certainly are taking the different direction today.
This has been a lot more fun to do it.
You really made the program work today with your schedule. Really made the program work. Okay, let's close it. It's up to you.
You know what?
Would you like to close it?
I will tell you that, I always take an opportunity to share my faith. I used to think that my life was all about me. It was all about Greg. 7 years ago, my life changed in an enormous way. God will bring different types of circumstances in your life to actually lean on Him, and it was the first time I ever did that, Herb. I prayed for the second time in my life, and I didn't even know what praying was all about. I had a conversation with God, and I remember getting on my knees in my living room, and Brandy and I were having a major difficulty in our marriage, and I had young kids, and I remember getting on my knees and asking God to just help. And a couple days later, Brandy came home with a book by Max Lucado. It's called A Love Worth Giving. And for the first time in my married life, I came home and didn't have a remote control in my hand. We sat and read this book over the course of 45 days, 2 months. She'd read a little bit every night, I'd read a little bit. Not only did my marriage change, my relationships with my friends changed, the people that I work for changed, and certainly my relationship with my Savior started. That's what has been the most dramatic thing that has ever happened in my life. It's been a great thing. I'm now, you know, you think about how busy you are. It's not my time to begin with. God just kind of, He takes it and he molds it the way He wants to mold. I'm a new music pastor. I didn't think I'd ever be singing in a church. You know, God knew way too much about me to ever allow me in a church. And I'm singing in church on weekends, and I think about the responsibility that holds. That's greater than anything that I'll ever do. And we've got a new, in fact, it's a new church up in North Little River called Waterbrook Community Church. Pastor Tom Clymer's up there preaching, and I'm leading songs of praise. And let me tell you, it ain't about me. And I will tell you that I am so humbled that you would take time, your time, to come and visit with me today. This has been a great experience for me, and I appreciate you letting me talk some, because I've gotten to make a new friend today, and that's you. So thanks, Herb, and I appreciate your listeners tuning in, and hopefully they will have listened to our interview, knowing that, you know what, hey, these two guys hit it off and made friends, and that's exactly what we got, a new friendship. That's the best thing happened today.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
That'll do it. You've been listening to Horry County Community Calendar. I'm your host and fellow Horry County and Herb Malsman. We'll see you next time here on WRNN.
Give him a great big woohoo, Herb.